It's the early 1940s. The world is one big boxing ring with heavyweights like the United States and Japan trading blows. The United States, with that good old American ingenuity, was cooking up a little something called the Manhattan Project. The goal? Nothing much, just the creation of the world's first atomic bomb. Casual, right? Now you'd think a project of such magnitude would be all hush-hush, but Uncle Sam's secrets are as leaky as a bad plumbing job. Word got around, and Japan, being the sharp-eyed hawk in the room, caught the whiff. But alas, their resources and tech couldn't keep up. For effort, though. Fast forward to 1945, the US had finally cracked the code and birthed the atomic bomb, that fiery behemoth that forever changed warfare, not to mention the lives of the people in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Talk about a game changer, eh? Those bombs packed a bigger punch than Mike Tyson in his prime. So, our scene is still set in the 1940s, but this time, let's shift our gaze to the land of the rising sun. Imagine the Japanese in their tucked-away labs, secretly winning the race to create the world's first atomic bomb. We're talking Einstein-level brainiacs sweating over blueprints, hidden factories working overtime, and all that atomic mumbo-jumbo no one but the lab coats understand. Think about it. No Manhattan Project, no Oppenheimer whispering, "I am become death," no Fat Man, no little boy. Nope, it's Japan that gets to drop the world's first mic drop that actually makes the earth shake. But where would they drop it? Pearl Harbor was already a scar on Uncle Sam's cheek. Would they choose to twist the knife in deeper, or perhaps aim for the Golden Gate Bridge, turning California into a nightmarish no man's land? You see, while the Americans were hunkered down in their labs cooking up the atomic wonder of the Manhattan Project, the Japanese weren't just chilling and sipping sake. Heck no, they had their very own backstage nuclear party going on, a shindig known as the Nigo Project. Picture a covert operation shrouded in mystery, a secret base hidden from prying eyes, a legion of science samurais, basically Japan's own Einsteinian Avengers, but swap the capes and hammers for lab coats and microscopes. Their mission? To create their very own Armageddon device, an atomic bomb to swing the war back in their favor. The Nigo Project was Japan's hush-hush play in the high-stakes poker game of developing nuclear weapons. But let's be honest here, folks, they were the underdogs, the little engine that couldn't quite. Sure, they had the brains, they weren't short on gray matter. But where Uncle Sam had a mountain of resources, Japan was digging into an almost empty cookie jar. The Japanese were playing a game of Twister, trying to keep their balance while fighting on multiple fronts. On one hand, they're trading blows with the Allies. On the other, they're trying to keep their economy from caving in like a poorly baked souffle, all while trying to cobble together an atomic bomb with as much uranium as you'd find in your grandma's antique clock. This wasn't some kooky science project where you could get by with popsicle sticks and glue. Oh no, this was the big leagues. Developing an atomic bomb is like putting on a Broadway show. You need time, money, and a truckload of resources. Japan was running low on all three. They were like a baker trying to whip up a fancy wedding cake with just a sprinkle of flour and a cracked egg. Despite their dogged determination, Japan's nuclear aspirations were akin to a one-legged man trying to win a butt-kicking contest. They were definitely in the fight, but they were not in any way getting the upper hand. The Nigo Project, while brimming with ambition and potential, ended up as the Cinderella story that never saw midnight. Their atomic dreams evaporated into the ether, leaving the field wide open for the Manhattan Project to step into the limelight with the world's first atomic divas, Fat Man and Little Boy. But let's imagine for a moment that the Nigo Project didn't just stay afloat amidst a sea of obstacles, but it set a new course, racing ahead with the wind in its sails. Picture a clandestine lab tucked away in the remote Japanese countryside, buzzing with frantic yet focused activity. The air is tense, filled with a mix of dread and excitement, as the finest brains of Japan, fueled by sake and sheer determination, race against time. Finally, after countless sleepless nights and relentless tinkering, they achieve what was thought impossible. In a secluded test site, under the watchful eyes of the Japanese Einsteins, a mushroom cloud blossoms, forever etching that day into the annals of this alternate history. The land of the rising sun has given birth to a terrifying new sun, the atomic bomb. But here's where things get real spicy. With this newfound power, where would Japan choose to leave its radioactive mark? Pearl Harbor, the site of their audacious opening gambit, might seem like an obvious choice. Or would they go all in, aiming their atomic ace at mainland American cities? Let's take a second to envision this nuclear nightmare. Picture the devastation as the sun rises one fateful day over Pearl Harbor, already a symbol of Japan's military might, only to be eclipsed by the blinding flash of an atomic blast. The harbor, so full of life just moments ago, is suddenly transformed into a silent, smoldering ruin. Or perhaps they'd aim for San Francisco, that shining beacon on America's west coast. Imagine the Golden Gate Bridge, that proud symbol of American innovation, melting under the unforgiving atomic fire. And then there's New York, the city that never sleeps. Picture its bustling streets abruptly silenced, its towering skyscrapers reduced to rubble, its vibrant spirit extinguished in a nuclear nightmare. An unimaginable sight indeed. But this atomic bombshell wouldn't just leave physical scars, it would also reshape the political landscape. Would the Allies surrender at the sight of the radioactive ruin? Would Stalin decide to stay out of the atomic fray, or would he jump headfirst into the nuclear arms race? The shock value alone would have been like a punch to the gut. Just think about it. A nation that was seen as an underdog in the atomic race is suddenly leading the pack. FDR and Churchill, their faces pale and their cigars forgotten, sitting in their offices staring at the reports of unimaginable destruction. On the battlefield, things would have gone from bad to downright catastrophic. Battles that were once crucial turning points could have become radioactive footnotes. Imagine the Battle of Midway, a major turning point in our timeline, becoming a nuclear wipeout. The once formidable US Pacific Fleet reduced to glowing, irradiated scrap metal. And what about D-Day, the largest amphibious assault in history? Would it have even happened if Japan had shown the world the horrifying power of the atom? Or would the beaches of Normandy have remained untouched by war, the landings called off in the wake of Japan's atomic threat? The impact on the Soviet Union is also worth pondering. Stalin, the man of steel, would have faced a choice: join the nuclear race or risk falling behind in the global pecking order. Picture the Kremlin under a cloud of atomic tension, Soviet scientists scrambling to catch up to their Japanese counterparts. It's even possible that World War II could have ended much earlier than it did. Would the Allies have thrown in the towel, eager to avoid more atomic annihilation? Perhaps Japan's grip on Asia would have tightened, their territories expanding under the protective umbrella of their nuclear arsenal. It's time to fast forward the clock. The dust of WWII has settled, and the mushroom cloud is just a dark memory on the horizon. But in this alternate universe, where Japan unleashed the atomic genie first, how would the world look in the aftermath? First off, power dynamics would have taken a sharp turn eastward. Instead of the stars and stripes or the hammer and sickle dominating the post-war world, we'd be looking at the red and white of the Japanese flag. With their early nuclear prowess, Japan would be sitting at the big boys' table, rubbing shoulders with, or even outshining the likes of the US, Britain, and the Soviet Union. And speaking of the Soviets, how would the Cold War have played out? Would it have been a frosty face-off between East and West? Or would a new player from the Far East have stepped onto the icy stage? Picture Stalin and Truman not only looking warily at each other, but also casting nervous glances towards Tokyo. The Iron Curtain could have had a new atomic-lined edge to it. In our timeline, the post-war world was marked by the struggle between two superpowers. But in this atomic plot twist, we could have seen a trifecta of power. International politics wouldn't just be a chess game between the USA and the USSR. It'd be more like a three-player game of Risk, with Japan holding a good chunk of the board and the atomic wildcard. And what about the international stance on nuclear weaponry? The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in our world led to global calls for nuclear disarmament and control. But if Japan, a nation that felt the brunt of nuclear devastation in our timeline, was the one dropping the bombs, how would that narrative change? Would the horrors of atomic warfare be downplayed or even celebrated? Or conversely, would Japan, having witnessed the destructive power of their creation, lead the charge for peace and control of nuclear weapons? Imagine a world where the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons is signed in Tokyo instead of Geneva. From the ashes of this alternate World War II, we've seen a new world order emerge, one where the land of the rising sun, armed with the deadliest weapon known to mankind, becomes a leading superpower. We've seen a Cold War that's not just chilly, but downright freezing, with a new player on the icy battlefield.